Hey guys, I'm Caleb Giddings,
And I'm Keith Finch.
and you are watching Gunday Brunch here on the Gat Daily YouTube channel. First off, right off the bat, happy yesterday Marine Corps birthday and happy Veterans Day to you, Keith.
Oh, and to you too, sir, Mr. Chair Force himself.
Yeah, sitting in a chair, as a matter of fact. So
I am
we're going to get
also
this.
I am appropriating your culture right now, sir.
Is that how that works? So does that mean
I,
if I like do something stupid with no budget, I'm appropriating Marine Corps culture?
that feels accurate.
True
Really feels
story.
accurate.
There's a video of me being used. My two partners picked me up and used me as a battering ram to breach a door during a shoot
Oh,
thing.
that is cultural appropriation, sir.
Yeah, I kind of thought so. Also, if the VA ever sees that video, they're going to be like, "Your spinal problems are not service related." Because what the hell is this? And I'll be like, "Yeah,
God, you
right though." All right, so today, guys, we're gonna get right to this because we're filming this on Thursday. It's Veterans Day. This video will air on, or is it Thursday? It's Thursday. Yeah,
It is Thursday.
Jeez, this video will air on
Sunday.
Sunday, and we're not going to be expecting a verdict in the Rittenhouse case until at least next week. So unless something very, very strange happens in the next couple of days, which it might, this case has been freaking wild.
This thing is nuts. Oh my God.
It's so bananas. But that's what we're talking about today, guys. We're talking about Rittenhouse. And right off the bat, let's do some reckless speculation. My reckless speculation, I think he walks on all three charges.
I concur that there's only one charge they might be able to get him on, and it's nothing relating to the shootings. It's related to him having the rifle. And I don't know if they're going to stick that one with how the prosecution is literally just buck wilding their own case.
It's the craziest. And like, I have not been watching the live coverage because that's like, I don't want to pressure test my cerebral arteries that much. So I've been reading recaps and things like that. But the two clips that have stuck out to me was when the prosecution was interviewing. I don't actually know the term. Yeah, I'm going to say interviewing. When the prosecution was talking to the one guy who was more on the conservative side, and he said, well, when he pointed the gun and said, fuck you, talking about one of the guys that got shot, I was like, it was something else.
Yeah, that was in relation to Rosenbaum, the first person shot and killed by Rittenhouse. Rosenbaum, who is a whole bundle of crazy if you look into his background, like that was.
Wasn't he a convicted child molester?
Yes, convicted on 2 counts of raping 5 boys between the ages of 9 and 11.
So and
he spent a decade in prison over that. So
he was like a good person that, like, look, hang on. I need to clarify something here really quick. And my opinion about the Rittenhouse case has been consistent since the day that it all happened. Was we need to wait for all of the facts to get out. We need, like, this shit's going to go to trial. We need to wait for this to happen. I had my own opinions, but I really wanted to keep them to myself because there was so much that I didn't know. However, I have known from the get-go that Rosenbaum was not a good person, and I'm not. I feel worse for Kyle that he has to.
That in any other circumstance. That's not to say not in any other circumstance. That's not to say in regular circumstances, like Rosenbaum just sitting there with the rest of the agitators and kind of being a general douchebag, that he deserved to be shot there.
Right.
It's the fact that Rosenbaum was not a good human being.
Right. I'm not going to shed any tears that he's been deleted from the gene pool.
Yeah, I'm 100% like, nope, that's fair. That's fair. He's gone. No great loss.
Yeah.
But the circumstances that resulted in him leaving this mortal coil, it's like, no, that checks out, because it checks out with his history of behavior, because he was convicted and imprisoned for the child rape charges, 2 counts. He was outstanding on some domestic violence stuff. I think, don't quote me on this, I think for the woman who got pulled into the trial to testify and ended up speaking on the pharmaceuticals that he happened to be on for bipolar, I think he had outstanding domestic charges in relation to her.
That's my shocked face. Let me tell it to you.
Yes.
Speaking of people making shocked faces during the trial, how about the prosecutor when he literally face palmed? Like he made himself into a meme because on cross-examination, that phrase I did remember, what was in Grosskreutz, the guy who got Grosskreutz, who got his bicep blown apart. He actually said, like on cross-examination, the defense got him to admit that he pointed his gun at Rittenhouse before Rittenhouse shot him. And I was like, again, if you guys are only listening to the audio version of this, I am making my like, oh my God face right now because, oh my God, he like on cross and the prosecutor just went, ah, shit, and just face palmed on camera for the whole world to see, and Dunn made himself into a meme. And I think that was after
the judge glorious meme too.
I think that was after the judge spent 10 minutes ripping him apart for sucking at his job.
Oh, the judge has been so mad at it's never, guys, I have not been watching the live stream either. I, however, have been watching 3 separate lawyers cover the live stream and giving their commentary. And the general consensus is this doesn't happen in real life. What is going on? This is not how trials go. What is going on? What is the prosecution doing? That seems to be, take Kyle Rittenhouse himself out of the whole situation and the politicization around that. Watching the behavior of the prosecutor is blowing the minds of lawyer friends of ours and just making them go, what? And over and over and over again. And it keeps getting crazier every step. But that was a defining moment because the prosecution needed to put Grosskreutz on the stand and make him like he was the crux. This guy needs to be the sympathetic person in this courtroom. It can't be Kyle Rittenhouse. It needs to be Grosskreutz. And in cross-examination, just by asking, like, okay, did this happen? Yes or no? Did this happen? Yes or no? Did this happen? Yes or no? They made Gage Grosskreutz look like a liar, a completely unreliable, like all the statements completely unreliable. Because this dude was tweeting and posting on social media and things like that actively while this case was going on, because either the prosecutor didn't tell him, hey, don't do that, that's dumb, or B, he ignored that advice and did it anyway. Some of that got admitted into evidence. And it was just a giant cluster of fuck. And they straight up got him to admit that Kyle Rittenhouse only shot him after he drew his Glock and pointed it at him.
Which, and look, I'm, neither of us are lawyers, obviously, and I didn't even stay at a Holiday Inn Express last night. But if somebody if I was laying on my back after being assaulted and someone pointed a Glock at me in Minecraft, I would shoot them.
I wouldn't even in Minecraft shoot them. No, if I had
in the real world, I would shoot
in the real world. If I had just been attacked and I was on the ground and someone then pointed a Glock at me, I would shoot them. And if it happened to have a rifle in my hand, I'm going to shoot them with the rifle.
Okay, now speaking of rifles, let's break down for the people out there this whole FMJ thing, because
oh my gosh, the funniest thing, there are so many meme-worthy moments already in this trial, and the defense has had a few too, but the prosecution has definitely owned the field on just cringe, crazy, meme-worthy things. And one of the most hilarious is his description of bullets and then being schooled on it by an 18-year-old.
Yes. Oh, it's so good. So this guy, the prosecutor, who I mean, he'll probably still have a job after this because it's really hard to fire public servants. But man, and I mean, I should also caveat, we have no idea if the jury is viewing this in the same way that we are. We have our own biases that we are obviously viewing this through. However, pause. I don't, knowing how the court system is supposed to work, I don't see how at this point they have not at least created a reasonable suspicion that this was self-defense, which means you vote to acquit. That's how this is.
That's how the law works.
That's how does the law always work like that? No. However, But I just, yeah. So for you guys who have not been following this, which I don't know, there's probably 3 of you out there living under a rock.
They're fresh off the boat from Mars. They don't know what happened.
The prosecutor made the argument that Kyle was carrying FMJ in his rifle because he wanted to kill more people than like because the bullets will just right through a person and it'll hit like the grandma with the babies and stuff behind her, which is, the sort of FUD lore that we hear about FMJ anyway. Mm-hmm. But yeah, so and then Kyle was like, wait, no.
Yeah, Kyle's like, no, that's not how ammo works. That's not how bullets work. We could get into it because that's one of the things that gets asked when people are talking about rifles for home defense is what is the best ammo as a defensive ammo to carry in a rifle for home defense, and it's usually an expanding tip round of some type. It's a medium or a heavy game round of some type that will mushroom and deliver a good kinetic energy transfer to a medium games, so like 100 to 200 pound animal, which we count as.
That being said,
you go into that, but that being said, Full Metal Jacket, especially Full Metal Jacket ammunition that is regular soft lead cord and doesn't have steel like M855 or M855A1 does, that makes a very good home defense round too, for various reasons related to the physics of the round, because it's long, it's narrow, it's traveling really fast, and it rotates. It'll, especially at that distance, it tends to impact into tissue and fragment. It'll break apart. So it does all the things we would want out of the expanding tip round, especially from the standpoint of not passing through and hitting multiple targets, that the expanding tip rounds do. And that's something that's unique to high velocity, low mass rifle projectiles like 5.56 and 5.45. You get into different calibers like the heavier 7.62 rounds or any of the handgun rounds, which are larger and dense, which is why they have that issue in the FUD lore. It's kind of an overblown issue between hollow points and Full Metal Jacket. But you get into that. This is absolutely not the argument to make with the rifle that they're trying to make it with, because that's the rifle that sets the rule. And it's the reason that law enforcement, SWAT teams, and all these people who would otherwise want low penetration ammo, they use 5.56 because it's low penetration ammo.
And I don't know if we know exactly what was loaded in his rifle, but I'm going to assume that it was some variant of 55 grain FMJ, which is in commercial loadings, it's usually loaded to the M193 spec, which if you guys don't know, M193 was our service ammo for a long time. It was our service ammo all the way up until the mid to late 90s when they replaced it with 8.55 that are known as green tip. And M193 worked really freaking well. Like it
was a great round.
A lot of stuff, and it still works really well. And the reason why it works is all the stuff Keith said. So when 193 hits tissue at the right velocity, it goes in and then it yaws like 90 degrees and then parts of it fragment and it does massive damage to things. So it's not like if you shoot somebody with a low velocity pistol bullet and a 124 grain 9mm round is actually more likely to zip clean through a person and keep on going with enough deadly energy to kill somebody on the other side than 5.56.
Because of its retained mass, because it's a massive chunk of lead, and how it's constructed. We talk about Full Metal Jacket and we'll say ball ammo, but pistol rounds are much more accurate to quote unquote ball ammo because they're thick and short for the same weight size. The rifle rounds, that long profile of the rifle round is what causes it to yaw, because all the mass at the back is still going when the tip, the lowest mass point, hits and changes mediums from air to hitting somebody or something. So that causes that yaw, that causes all those physical effects that turn the round into an actually very effective defensive round.
A great, there's actually a really great illustration of this that was done in mainstream media. If you guys used to watch Mythbusters, which I used to watch religiously, they tested the myth of whether you can dive down into the water to like get away from rifle fire. Because in the movies, you'll see like the hero jumps down into the water to try to get away from gunfire. And what they found, which is consistent with what we're talking about, is that high velocity rifle projectiles actually break up in like the first foot or so of water, and that pistol bullets tended to go 2 to 3 feet through water while still retaining energy. And obviously that reason is exactly what we talked about. The sectional density of 124 grain 9 mil round is crazy compared to like a 55 grain 5.56 round or something like that. So listening to the prosecutor, or in my case, reading the prosecutor talk about how FMJ zips through 78 people, and literally watching a prosecutor repeat FUD lore in a trial, I was like, is this real life? Is this actually happening right now?
No, this is not the real life. This is in fact fantasy. We are caught in the landslide.
No
oh
escape.
Boy,
it's yeah, it's the craziest
watching a person with degrees whose whole job is to prove that what he's saying is right and the jury should listen to him repeat FUD lore to a kid who can then refute it was it's amazing. It was so
insane,
so astounding. Other highlight points. What were they calling her online? Chadma, Grambo.
Oh, Grambo, yes.
Yeah, they put a little old lady on the stand to try and make Rittenhouse look bad, and she basically just she wasn't having any of the prosecutor's shit, and that was hilarious. And B, she was just like, oh, he was a nice young man. It was all right. I held his rifle while he was treating some injuries, and it was great. As I understand it, Grandma was not having any of the prosecutor's shit. The judge is not having any of the prosecutor's shit.
Nope.
This thing is bananas. And guys, we can talk about the meme level side of this forever because there's so much fodder to go with. But bringing it up in a more serious note, this is probably going to be the self-defense trial of at least a decade, unless something absolutely crazier happens. And so taking a look at what happened, what charges could land and could stick versus what charges could be refuted and taken off and defended against, especially with good legal representation. You know, we can have our own personal opinions on Rittenhouse's actions and what the law says and what the law should mean. That doesn't mean it ends up that way in a courtroom unless you have the legal representation to make that happen. And following the commentary, following the legal commentary, you can find lawyers doing legal commentary on this on YouTube each day of the trial so far. And the commentary is very detailed, very good. But the consensus from every lawyer I've seen make comment on this is just that this trial is bonkers. It's wild. Like, this is not supposed to happen in regular trials. This happens on TV. This happens on Law and Order.
It's like watching an episode of Law and Order. Like, I'm not even kidding. Like when I go on Twitter and I see these clips, and then I'm like, wow, that's really intense. That seems like I couldn't have written that. And then I find out that that's because this doesn't happen in real trials. We're living in bizarro land here.
This is a real trial and it's happening in real life. And every lawyer in existence that I talk to about this goes, this shouldn't be happening.
Yeah. It's completely insane to me that this is the way this trial has been going. And I think, though, to your point, there's value in us unpacking not just the legal side of this, but to, as much as I hate to say it, the tactical side of this, because, this whole shooting, let's assume that Kyle gets off, falls into a category that I frequently classify as justified but avoidable,
Yes.
And again, regardless how you feel about Kyle or anything like that, he definitely broke the rules of stupids, which is don't go stupid places with stupid people at stupid times who are doing stupid things, and he broke like 3 of those. So, and as a result of that, he ended up having to kill 2 people. And again, whether or not it's justified isn't the point here. The point here is that if you don't want to put yourself in a situation where you may have to kill people, it's best to avoid, like, 100%. If he walks, there's going to be more riots, because there are people, as I just discovered today from social media, there are people who think Kyle is on trial for shooting minorities.
Yes.
Which I was like, wait, how did you not know that?
The absolute insanity of jumping into a Gen Pop comment section about the Rittenhouse trial is astounding. I've been very disappointed in NPR's coverage in particular. And I've actually been very impressed with the New York Times coverage. To put two news organizations that generally I flip on. I'm generally
normally NPR is really good.
Yep, the New York Times was actually doing very well, and NPR was definitely letting their bias flag fly. They clearly think that Kyle should go down for this, and they're doing a very poor job of hiding that fact. One
of the sneakiest tricks that I've seen in the media coverage of this has been where people will say, and I was just reading, I think it was CNN that I skimmed this article on, where it was like, Rittenhouse is on trial for the shooting of 2 protesters, doesn't say anything about the protesters, and then it says that were connected to the law enforcement shooting of a black man, Jacob Blake, I think, or whatever that guy's name was, that the cops up in Wisconsin shot. And the way that the sentence is structured and the way it reads is it leaves you with because they very specifically don't mention the race of the 2 dead guys, but then mention the race of the guy that the police shot. It creates an inherent bias where you assume that because they were protesting at this thing, that they were also Black Americans, instead of the fact that they were 2 white guys, convicted domestic abuser and a convicted child rapist. Again, just because you did crimes doesn't mean you should get yeeted off the planet. However,
past behavior indicative of perhaps actions, like, we've already proven that you don't make the best decisions. We can also therefore conclude that perhaps you continued to not make the best decisions, and in the immortal words, you fucked around and found out.
They did.
But yeah, the headline manipulation of the various media, because I did an article on this that pulled about 9 of them, I think. If you go to like the 30 major media outlets, from like Vox on the one side to Breitbart on the other, it's very clear which organizations are trying to maintain a neutral tone on it, which is what I expect out of a news media organization. That's the standard I want. But it's not the standard we're getting. Everyone's using headline manipulation, because the nice thing about headline manipulation for those organizations is you can essentially title your piece whatever you want and lie through the headline, and then be perfectly succinct and accurate in the actual story to what happened, or at least accurate enough that it's like, yes, all of those things happened, and your tone suggests you're thinking one way or another, but everything in the story, all those things did occur in the trial. I remember pulling up a CNN article, and it was discussing Rosenbaum, and it made Rosenbaum as a very sympathetic figure in its narrative, because it started with Rosenbaum was a homeless man. So, okay, all right, that's, I think, technically accurate of the time. I don't think he had a residence on file with the state at the time, and had just gotten out of the hospital that morning, which was true. He'd gotten out of the hospital from, as best I can find, a suicide attempt the previous day, or previous, close enough that he was released that morning. Another story I read said it may have been a psychiatric hospital, not a hospital where he was getting treated for an injury. I'm not sure which. But CNN was like, he was a homeless man who had just gotten out of the hospital this morning. And then at the very end of this paragraph, making Rosenbaum into, you know, a fairly sympathetic figure that was protesting on the side of the
BLM movement,
the BLM component. At the very end, they casually slipped in, and oh yes, he went to prison for a decade for criminal sexual contact with a minor.
Yeah,
and for those, and in the verbiage, you know, when someone's trying to be aggressive about something like that, they'll usually say 10 years. They'll say 10 years in prison. 10 years. They spent 10 years in prison for child rape, which is what he did. When someone terms it, oh, a decade's a bit of a softer term, and then criminal sexual contact with a minor, it almost sounded like CNN was trying to spin it so that Rosenbaum got caught by like a statutory law or something like that. Like he was with a 16-year-old or a 17-year-old while
and he was like 19,
and the law said 18 was the age of consent. And, you know, so he stepped across that line. But ladies and gentlemen, you do not go away for 10 years for that.
Yeah, he raped a child. Like, let's be very clear.
He raped upwards of 5 children.
Yeah. So, and again, we you know, to be very clear, I do not think that by itself is a reason to be summarily removed from the gene pool. But I'm also not sad that he was removed from the gene pool. And I also think that you absolutely can introduce past bad actions by the guys who got shot because it sets their frame of mind. You know, this guy was a convicted felon with mental issues. You know, the other guy was convicted of misdemeanor domestic abuse. Like, these are not people that have an established.
Repeated. This wasn't like you caught one charge.
Yeah,
the multiple charges on, like, the most clean cut of the 3 people that Rittenhouse shot was the survivor.
Yeah, it was Gross Goose.
Who was only intoxicated with a firearm as a charge.
Right. Which,
misdemeanor.
You know, whatever. I
mean, like, not you shouldn't do that, but like that establishes a little bit of history of I make bad decisions, not the I unjustly attack people violently, which the other 2 had.
Yeah. Now, here's one thing too. If you are carrying a handgun and you pointed at someone who is carrying a rifle, it is very reasonable to assume that that person with the rifle is going to try to shoot you. Like,
yes,
because if I reverse this, and this is actually one of the fun's a gross word to use there. It's not fun. One of the things that I've enjoyed doing is I'm like, okay, what if I put myself in Gross Kurtz's shoes? Like, how am I reacting to this? Because from everything that I've seen, he was the 3rd person to show up, and he was arriving after the initial assault on Kyle, arriving after Kyle had already shot Rosenbaum.
Actually, if you go through a quick correction, he was the 4th. He was the 4th person. He was the 3rd injured, but there was a 3rd person in between who kicked Kyle or kicked at Kyle.
That was the guy doing like a flying jump kick at him.
Yeah, Kyle fired. If I recall correctly, Kyle fired but did not hit that guy.
And that guy has
swung at him close. Kyle shot. That didn't happen. Then Grosskreutz, however you pronounce his name. Then Grosskreutz comes in, hands up at first, like, hey man, I'm going to help you or try and diffuse the situation, take care of it. That's the body language is at first, hey, I'm not your enemy. And then the dude goes for his gun.
Yeah, which, you know what? And so
if I'm sitting in Grosskreuz's shoes, I did that all wrong.
Mm-hmm.
If I legitimately believe that Kyle is an active shooter, killing people on the street and can get away with it,
I'm just going to shoot him.
I'm just going to shoot him. I have made those connections in my mind. I am going to shoot the active threat, which when you reverse the seats again there, and we go back to Rittenhouse's shoes, that's what he did.
Mm-hmm.
He pointed at Grosskreutz as he ran up because he'd just been attacked by 3 other
people.
Yeah. two people on the run, and he'd already been attacked and left the Rosenbaum scene. So he'd been attacked by two other people, Huber with a skateboard, and then, flying ninja kick guy.
Who, by the way,
then,
as an interesting aside, has not shown up. Like flying ninja kick guy, we have no idea who that guy is. He has not, like, the police never found him. That dude has been like, I want nothing to do with this shit. I'm out. I am under the radar.
To be fair, if I dodged a 5.56 at muzzle range, I might have that. Like, I'd be like, all right,
go buy a lottery ticket.
I am out. I am done. I am out. I am reconsidering my life choices.
No shit.
So,
to kind of bring this all around and I don't know if we can put a bow on it because it's not very pretty. It's not very pretty. There's so much chaos. So much chaos going around with this. So if Kyle walks on all charges, which, let me rephrase that. If Kyle walks on all the murder charges, which are the only ones we really care about, the minor in possession of a weapon that he probably shouldn't have had. The murder charges are the ones that we're interested in. If he walks on the murder charges, 100% there's riots, or maybe like 75% there's riots. I'm going with 100. I think if he walks, there are small encapsulated riots that are intentionally started by bad actors. I don't think that this is going to be one of those I don't think it's going to be like a Rodney King verdict situation where the riots were sort of organic. I think these are intentional bad actors who will try to start this stuff.
And that's why I give it like a 60% chance, is because I believe the deliberate instigation is going to be looked at carefully, is the wrong word, but I don't know if they're going to get traction. And one of the biggest reasons I don't know if they're going to get traction is because the white supremacy, we're going to see a lot of hatred in comment sections on everything like that. Like, everyone's going to vent their spleen online about this. However, I don't foresee riots if they can't get the momentum about it. And I think this is a more online angry keyboard warrior situation versus let's burn the city down. And for a very, very, very simple reason is we've had enough time to look at the three people that got shot, and hate to say it, they're all white. So this is no longer a racial, like, this was a white guy who shot and killed two white guys and vaporized the arm of a third white guy. And the loudest arguments I've seen in the comment sections are all related to, oh, Kyle shouldn't have been there in the first place. We should charge his mom for bringing him, and all related to Kyle being there in the first place, and no longer about the deaths specifically. It's all about Kyle. Kyle should not have been there in the first place. And with that attitude, I don't know if they're going to be able to generate enough anger and energy for a riot, especially when the three dudes who got shot were all not the greatest people, and they were white.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think. I think that's a
sad.
spot
We
on.
could still.
I hope
this could still, for any because people riot for winning professional sports games. So we could absolutely see riots for the verdict in this trial. But the real question about the trial wrapping up is, do they get him on the weapon possession charge for being a minor in possession of an AR, or do they go after the friend who gave him the AR or anything like that? Because that's the most legally poignant part of the case that has teeth to stand on from the prosecution. But the prosecution has spent all their time trying to get the murder charges to stick and been doing just an atrocious job.
Really not a great job. I think that I do think it's interesting, how the trial has obviously gone, and to speculate on what's going to happen. I do have one side note before we wrap this up, is that in the time that we've been having this conversation, Twitter has removed the free Kyle Rittenhouse hashtag from their from their trending sidebar. And the only one that's showing in trending now is Kyle Rittenhouse is guilty. When I logged in this morning, they were both in the top 10 trending. And then all in the time that we had this conversation, they were like, oh, let's just go ahead and remove free Kyle Rittenhouse as a trending hashtag. So I'm not saying that Twitter is biased and is a cesspool full of people who are just screaming into the wind, but yes, actually, I am saying that. I'm 100% saying that, regardless of what side they're on.
Let's quote the wonderful scholar Dave Chappelle, Twitter isn't real.
Twitter isn't real. Amen to that. Twitter is not real. All right, guys, that is it for this week's episode. We didn't do a sponsor read at the top of it because we're both so hyped to talk about all of this. But if you have thoughts on how you think this is going to go, on how you think it's going to end up, leave them in the comment section below. Or if you're listening on YouTube or on iTunes or Spotify, thank you for listening. And we will be back next week with another episode.
Later.